Welcome dear friends, let me greet you all on behalf of me and my mates, Kovács Claudia, Novotny Korina, Túl Márton, and my name is Gyuricsek Dóra. We are students of the 6th grade of a primary school in Budapest, Hungary, named after Dr. Vermes Miklós. We would like to enter a place where we are also at the first time. This is Polaris Observatory, that is a center of Hungarian non-professional astronomers. Our team is doing research into the effects of light pollution. That's why we are here.
Well, who are we going to ask about light pollution? He is a professional astronomer, Dr. Kiss László. It is said that he has been to half of the world. His research is well known almost everywhere. As a professional astronomer, he cares a lot about the non-professionals. Is he going to talk to us? Let's try it.
Good afternoon. I would like you to introduce yourself shortly.
Good afternoon. I'm László Kiss, an astronomer of the Concoli Observatory working for the Hungarian Academy of Sciences.
How did you decide to become an astronomer?
That's a long story, so I'd like to make it very short. I have always been an amateur astronomer, meaning that I have been interested in astronomy very early on. I got my first telescope in 1982 when I was 10 from my parents, and I have always been amazed by the beauty of the starry night. So after a couple of years I got involved in the Hungarian Astronomical Association, which is the countryside the largest organization for amateur astronomers in Hungary, and somehow I got interested in doing scientific research. So when I went to the university in Szeged in 1991, I started some research work in astronomy. And somehow later, over the years, I have become a physicist first, a physicist interested in astronomy, and then I did I continued my research until I got a PhD research degree in 2000, 10 years ago. And ever since I have worked as an astronomer. But I kept my interest in astronomy. I am still an observer, and as an amateur astronomer, I've got my own telescope, and I like watching the sky.
What does a professional astronomer do among the non-professionals?
I like supporting amateur astronomers. I mean, all people around me here, we are now at the Polaris Observatory of the Hungarian Astronomical Association, which is a central basis for the amateur astronomers here in Hungary. So here, everyone around me is an amateur. They are a friend of mine. So there are at least two aspects why I am interested in amateur astronomy. First, people are a friend of mine, and second, I like teaching astronomy. I like joining, observing weekends and things like that. So simply, it's fun.
Where have you traveled during your work?
I have visited many countries all over the world, but mostly the most important part of my professional history is going to Australia. I went to Australia over 7 years ago in December 2002 as a postdoctoral fellow, and I spent almost 7 years in Sydney at the University of Sydney. But in relation to my research work there in Australia, I have also visited the United States, Spain, New Zealand, and other places in the world. I mean, these days astronomy is a very international science, and science in general is very international, which means people have to travel. But the beauty of astronomy has another component of this traveling. Astronomical observatories are usually located at very distant places, an island, the big mountains, and where the sky is very dark. And because of that, astronomers, as part of their work, have to travel to other places. So that's the beauty of it.
How long have you been to Australia?
As I mentioned, I've been to Australia for 7 years, where I worked at the University of Sydney as an astrophysicist, and in addition to my research work, I have also taught at the university. I had classes, I supervised students, so I was involved in all sorts of work as a professional astronomer.
What was your work there?
My work there was mostly about studying stars, so stellar physics of stars, through observations and theoretical interpretation of their oscillations. So stars, big things, they can oscillate like a pendulum or things like that, and through observing their oscillations one can study what's inside the stars. That was mostly what I did there.
Have you seen the Milky Way there?
Of course, the southern sky is much more beautiful than what you can see here. And of course, I took all the opportunities to watch the southern sky, including the Milky Way, but not just the Milky Way. You have to recognize that there are also other very beautiful things like the Magellanic Clouds. Two other galaxies, the two closest neighboring galaxies of the Milky Way, they are very beautiful. And of course, the Milky Way. It's simply amazing.
What's the difference between the sky in Hungary and in Australia?
The sky is different in many aspects. First of all, it's in the south. I mean, the southern sky, which contains constellations never seen in Hungary, are completely different. Simply imagine most of the body of Earth hides what's behind it. There's the southern skies. And of course, Sydney, for example, is about 80 degrees in the southern direction from Budapest, which means everything which is above us here in Budapest is right on the northern horizon in Sydney. So the sky looks completely different. The other difference is that the sky in Australia is much darker than anywhere in Europe. That's because Australia is a huge continent. Its territory is almost as big as that of Europe, but instead of living there 500 million people like in Europe, there are only 22 million people, and most of them live in 5 big cities, which means there are huge spaces with no inhabitant at all. And because of that, there is no light pollution at all in Australia, which means that the sky is very dark, so you can see very faint stars, nebulae, other galaxies and things like that.
Why did you leave Australia and your work there?
Why did I leave? That's a good question. I mean, on a practical level, I have been attracted back to Hungary by a newly established fellowship scheme of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. A year ago, the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, or actually the president of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, established a new grant scheme, a research grant scheme, which was aimed at attracting young Hungarian researchers working abroad to coming home, to help them coming home from other countries. And I sent in an application because after 7 years, or after 6 years at that time, I felt that I could be more useful for the Hungarian astronomy and Hungarian amateurs in Hungary than in Australia. But there are also all sorts of reasons, but I think these are the most important ones.
How does light pollution disturb astronomers?
Light pollution as such is becoming increasingly very disturbing fact. I mean, you have to realize that whatever interesting thing is going on the sky, it's always faint, which means distant galaxies, supernovae exploding in other galaxies, or quasars billions of light years away. They are all very faint, and in order to detect them, in order to analyze the light coming from those faint distant sources, we have to minimize all the other lights around. I mean, the moon itself can be very bright every month, and that causes a natural light pollution. But in addition to that, human activities have increased this non-natural, these artificial lights everywhere in the world, everywhere around big cities, and unfortunately even around small villages, you can find very bright lights. And that makes our life quite miserable, or that can make our life quite miserable, because we simply lose the possibility of detecting faint stars, faint galaxies. Simply, light pollution makes almost impossible to observe the most interesting part of the universe.
What do you think about light pollution in Hungary?
Light pollution in Hungary has always been there. I mean, Hungary is a small country with lots of small villages, bigger cities, one metropolis in the middle of it, Budapest. And unfortunately, over the last 20 years, light pollution has become quite a significant problem. I mean, Hungarian Academy of Sciences and its Concoli Observatory has a relatively big observatory in the Matra Mountains at Piszkéstető, near Gajatető, which is relatively far from all the bigger places. But even despite of that fact, the sky at the Piszkéstető station is becoming brighter and brighter. So there are reasons for being worried about light pollution in Hungary. There are good changes here and there, but on a general level, light pollution is a significant problem. Whether it will change, whether there will be some different attitudes towards light pollution by the local councils, local governments, it is yet to be seen. I'm optimistic.
In your opinion, is it useful for more and more children to know about light pollution?
Of course. The starry night, simply the sky filled with stars, is part of our great inheritance, great cultural inheritance. Young people, children, will grow big, will grow old, and they will have to have the opportunity to simply enjoy the beauty of the starry night. Which means, if children will get to know about light pollution, that's important because they have to inherit the possibility of watching the sky. And of course, children 20 years later will be the ones who make the new decisions, and they have to be prepared to understand the concept of light pollution. The concept of light pollution in the framework of natural, of keeping the environment as much as we can. So there are all sorts of other reasons why it is important, but I think this is the most important one.
What can we do against it?
It's tough. It's not an easy question because in Hungary there are no country-level law against light pollution. There are other places in the world where there are laws against light pollution. For example, the Canary Islands have such a law against light pollution. Czech Republic has a law against light pollution. Here there isn't such thing, and probably elevating the public awareness in light pollution is the first step what we have to take. And legal action, for example, having a law against it, will be a future step sometime in the coming years.
Finally, we would like to congratulate you on winning the competition of the Academy of Science that you can carry on research into foreign planetary systems. We brought you a present as well. We would like to thank you for not only this report with this chocolate.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, I'm very surprised. Thank you very much.
We want to return your kindness when you sent some bars of chocolate to our school some years ago, before our birth.
As you know, next to the chocolate there was a message too, that in Serbia there are many good people. We wish you pleasant visits to Horgos, your hometown, to meet your old friends. Thank you very much for this report.
Oh, you are all very welcome. It's a great pleasure.